the beginning of time, to the beginning of the end of time. Kingdom Hearts Union Cross had a huge story update, but unlike the previous story updates, this is actually caught up to global instead of premiering first in Japan. And within this giant story exposition, we learn some key elements of the plan put into motion by the light, the darkness, and the Master of Masters, in which it can play out in gigantic ways within Phase 2 of Kingdom Hearts and have heavy repercussions going forward with the world of Unreality, Quadratum, and beyond. And it is time to break down the beginning of the end. What's up guys, it's HMK once again with a gigantic Kingdom Hearts video relating from Union Cross into Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind and the future of the series going into Phase 2. This is quite a spicy one. We've got a lot to go over, so I hope you can keep up. And with that being said, be sure to like, favorite, share, and most importantly, subscribe to HMK for more Kingdom Hearts content every week and hit that bell to know when they go live. Alright, strap on in for the safety of hype. Let's dive directly into the darkness. As a primer, previously in Union Cross, the darkness finally revealed itself coming out of Ventus, and then Brain, Echovald, and Skuld prepare for battle. As this story update begins, it comes with an ominous message from who we think is Luxu, telling the Dandelions that their time is almost up, as the world of Daybreak Town begins to digitally deteriorate, signaling that the true end is indeed coming. Following up on that, we get a conversation between the Master of Masters and Luxu when it comes to the box. Remember this conversation? We saw it in 3D Kingdom Shader graphics way back in the day in 2017 in Kingdom Hearts Key back cover. The way this conversation starts is basically word for word, but in the Union Cross style. However, the conversation continues. While the conversation in back cover ended with the Master of Masters saying, "You'll see," to Luxu when he asked what's in the box and finding out what's actually in the box, it continues from that point forward, and we still don't know what's in the box, but after this story update, I think I might have a clue now. As a follow-up to make sure that nothing happens to Luxu, the Master of Masters tells Luxu that as soon as the darkness strikes at dawn and the lifeboat, the Ark, departs, the world would have fulfilled its purpose and that it will be set to end, and that Luxu, with the gazing eye, needs to see it through to the end, which is more than likely the scene that we saw at the beginning of 0.2 Birth by Sleep. The Master of Masters finishes his instruction by telling Luxu as soon as it all wraps up, he needs to get out of there ASAP. He needs to open up a corridor and go to a new world as fast as he can. When speaking on this long-winded attempt in order to destroy the darkness, the Master of Masters explains to Luxu that the actual purpose of the world, the Age of Fairy Tales, Daybreak Town, was to nurture the light, nurture the Dandelions, to set them up in order to destroy the darkness in the next world. That was the whole point of this world. That these seeds of light must be grown to be sown into the future so that they can finally stop the darkness and that the sun will finally set on this duskless dawn. Which sounds like a really cool name for a Keyblade. And if that comes to fruition, then their plan would have finally succeeded. This is only the beginning, but this particular piece of information is incredibly crazy to me because it seems that the Master of Masters only deems the world of Daybreak Town as basically a type of training ground in order to set up the next generation so they could be strong enough to actually defeat the darkness, in which they can't do so right now. As we move on to the next scene, we see that the Keyblade wielders, the Union leaders, are really going in on the darkness. Skuld, Echovald, and Brain are giving it all they got. Like, really, look at this. However, Skuld gets downed and it's only up to Echovald and Brain. And then Brain gets downed. As Echovald is the last man standing, he has a conversation with the darkness in which we get a lot of revelations. The reason why the darkness is doing all of this, getting in their way, is that it's trying its hardest in order to get infection started. The darkness states that just like humans, data is easily corruptible by the darkness, which they can use to seed in and boost their signal in order to infect as much as they can, thus reproducing darkness. But something that is really huge and super cool for me is that the darkness explains why they specifically chose Ventus, even though Ventus was chosen by the Book of Prophecies, is that the darkness explains that they need particular hosts in order to break off, reshape, and become Willful Darkness. Pieces of darkness that are distinct but still part of the whole. In previous videos, I coined this term as cognitive darkness, but now it seems we have a more in-line phrase with it known as willful darkness. So if the darkness is able to get their hands on special hosts, they can break off pieces of darkness that have thought, planning, brains, mind. In the deepest sense, a will. And I think this is extremely cool because now we can see other pieces of darkness, willful darkness, that are broken off by other individuals that are special hosts that can create these new monstrosities. And I feel this could lead into the new true villain of the next saga of Kingdom Hearts, Phase 2. After this, Skuld and Lauriam both wake up, getting ready to join Brain and Ephemer to take down the darkness. And though the darkness explains that this number of people will be able to take it down, here comes you, me, us, to the rescue. Hey, look, that's me. As we prepare for battle, Lauriam states that we're gonna defeat the darkness and get back to the real world because we're in the data world right now. But then the darkness is like, nah, it's still gonna go down. It explains that by Maleficent traveling to the future and to the real world, that the clock is literally ticking for Daybreak Town that's gonna be consumed by the darkness either way. Further clarifying that the lifeboat is actually the last line of defense against the darkness, and that its activation starts the process to seal the world entirely and hopefully the darkness with it. But since Maleficent already left, that's all the darkness needs in order to get out. Or live on, at least. In response, Ephemer says that he doesn't believe it, as Master Ava wouldn't set them up to be thrown away in this sense. But honestly, I think that Master Ava would do that in order to set them up to get out of there in the first place. So maybe Master Ava could just throw them away, I don't know. And with that, a huge battle begins between the darkness and the Union leaders, along with ourselves, the player. And after a grueling battle, I mean, like, for real, that battle was pretty big. The darkness states that it is formless and that it cannot be defeated. Just then, a bunch of heartless darklings come around and seem to be ready to take Ventus's body. But then, Ventus wakes up, unleashes his power of light and destroys the three darklings around him. And now that Ventus is in super light mode, he explains that if what came from him was pure darkness, then Ventus is pure light. And that since the darkness shaped itself through Ventus, Ventus should have the power to reshape it again into a form that they can defeat. As Ventus is getting ready to take down the darkness, Lauriam states that he doesn't want to lose him either, as he's already lost his sister, Strelitzia. Ven replies that everything's gonna be alright, and then literally flashes to the darkness's face and blinds the screen in a bright light. So honestly, with an ability like that what Ventus was talking about, I can see why Xehanort decided to take him on as an apprentice before the events of Birth by Sleep. And now we get to the really juicy stuff. Afterwards, a scene plays during an unknown period of time in which the darkness is apparently checking on the data in the room which contains the arcs. And then Luciu shows up with a body in a white cloak, kind of like how we saw Xehanort running around with Ventus in a white cloak at the beginning of Birth by Sleep. And it looks like the darkness and Luciu are pretty buddy-buddy right now. As Luciu and the darkness converse on the Master of Masters' plan, saying that Luciu is not supposed to mess around with the world and just watch until it ends, Luciu then prepares another arc to be used. The darkness states if Luciu uses the arc, then the plan that the Master of Masters put into place will be ruined. But Luciu says it's not for me, it's for this. But notice the computer screen as Luciu is setting up the arc, it seems that one of the arcs is already gone and that he activates another one of the 7, being the second arc so far. And further in the scene, you already see that one of the arcs all the way to the right is already used up. So this is actually telling me that this scene could take place right after Maleficent returned to the real world and dipped when the darkness told her to. So that this is the real world in the past right after Maleficent left, and that the darkness went to check on the data right after Maleficent left, and then Luciu showed up with this body. So as Luciu is preparing the arc with this body, the darkness says, "What is that?" Luciu replies, "This is the true Dandelion, the true seed of light that will be sown into the future." And if this is true, the darkness is literally just letting it happen. I swear, I don't understand the dynamic in the relationship between the Master of Masters, Luciu, and the darkness. It seems that they're pretty amicable, like they're playing a friendly chess match over eons. But hey, roll with it. Remember, just because you use the darkness doesn't make you evil. Anyways, Who is this Dandelion? I feel it really depends on the point of time when this scene occurs in relation to everything. Could this Dandelion be Ava? Could it be Strelitzia? Could it be Ventus? Could it be the player character? Could it be Skuld? Leave your theories in the comment section below, but I'm leaning towards either Ventus or the player. Ventus for obvious reasons, and the player being sent off as the true Dandelion could possibly explain why young Xehanort has the player's memories. Think about that. I feel we're gonna get a little bit more clarification in Dark Road. Just you wait. And now we get to the juiciest section of this update. In another unknown period of time, it seems that the Master of Masters and the Darkness are being buddy-buddy talking about the plans for the future, and that the Master of Masters explains that the current world they're in, the Age of Fairy Tales, Daybreak Town, exists in 3 stages that is supposed to cultivate and nurture the best of the best Keyblade wielders in order to carry on the light into the next world, and that when all 7 of the lifeboats, all 7 of the arcs depart, then this world will end and a new day will dawn. But then the Darkness says something extremely interesting. The Darkness states, "So you came to this world just to end it?" Which heavily implies that the Master of Masters did not originate from this time or this world, Daybreak Town or the Age of Fairy Tales. Did he come from the world before? Did he come from an outside world? Is he coming to these worlds that are destined to be destroyed in order to use them to finally set up the light to defeat the Darkness at one point? Did he originally come from Quadratum, bouncing back and forth between reality and unreality in order to put this plan into motion? When the Darkness claims that the Master of Masters has the Book of Prophecies so that he should see everything, the Master of Masters simply replies that the Book of Prophecies isn't that important as everyone thinks it is, and that it is truly only as important to him as he needs it as a waypoint in order to have a time travel loophole. That the most important thing of the Book of Prophecies is when it was written and how it gets to its destination towards the end of the book. As apparently, if you're going to use a lifeboat in order to travel into the future, you have to leave your body behind. But you need 2 things to recreate your body at the destination. 1, a medium, and 2, someone with memories in order to recreate your existence. We've seen this with Maleficent in Kingdom Hearts 2, and that's why the Book of Prophecies and Luxu are so important to the Master of Masters. Because since Luxu was tasked with the Gazing Eye in order to survive to the future to make sure that the Book of Prophecies was written, the existence of the book solidifies Luxu and the Keyblade's existence in the future, thus giving the Master of Masters a direct line from A to B to travel to the future, as Luxu has the memories of the Master of Masters and the Keyblade has the eye, which acts as the medium to rebuild his body. And that the Master of Masters states that this is a very important step that he's not going to take alone, in which the Darkness and the Master of Masters both comment on the notion known as the 7 crowns, that apparently is meant to be used by the 7 lights. Now this is wild. The concept of 7 crowns, these 7 crowns, kind of tells me the notion that there are true 7 lights, true guardians of light. The true 7 that is meant to stand against the Darkness when the final time comes. And the Master of Masters states that these crowns can be used by anybody. And honestly, that is what I'm expecting to be in the black box. So, who are those destined to wield the 7 crowns? I mean, obviously I think Sora might be one of them, and I think that Yozora could be one of them as well. But who are the other 5? The Master of Masters wraps up saying that he's tired of seeing the light and the darkness fight. And when he comments on something like that, does it mean that he's outside of the fight? Because he said that he is tired of watching them duke it out. He's not tired of fighting the darkness himself. And he finishes by saying that he has even seen a world in the future that he couldn't conceive. And when it comes to a world, a wild world, I think we all believe he is talking about Quadratum. And that is the big wrap up to the huge story update that we got that leads into the beginning of the end of Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. I believe that we can either have 1 or 2 more story updates until everything is said and done, and I am here for it because we got a ton of awesome information. And you know me, I have a lot to theorize about, especially the idea of the 7 crowns. And if you want to theorize with me, be sure to check out my podcast, The Fifth Dimension, because tonight we have an episode on the Union Cross beginning of the end scenario. And if you enjoyed the video, please like, share, favorite, and most importantly subscribe to HMK for more awesome Kingdom Hearts content in the future, and leave all your theories, thoughts, and comments in the comment section below. Big thanks to my Patreon supporters for helping making this video happen. If you want to find out how you can support HMK for just $1 a month, please check out my Patreon info in the description box below. Alright guys, until the next wild video, Phase 2 is looking clean. This has been HMK, and I'll check you guys later.
So you haven't subscribed to HMK yet? Don't piss Xemnas off.